I'm Esther. The shrill scream on the other end of the phone still rings in my ears. It was my mother-in-law, Vivian, her voice filled with shock and disbelief. "What kind of sick joke is this?" she shrieked, her words nearly piercing my eardrum. I put her on speaker and started recording the call, calmly asking, "Is there a problem?" It all started when I handed that seemingly innocent envelope to Vivian. It felt heavier than it should have, filled with not just the weight of the paper inside but the weight of years of pent-up anger and frustration. Vivian's greedy fingers snatched it from my hands before I could even fully extend my arm. She sneered, weighing the envelope in her palm. "You're finally contributing to this family like a proper daughter-in-law should," she said. My father-in-law, Henry, nodded approvingly from his luxurious armchair. The armchair was bought with my husband Leo's bonus last year, a blatant display of their extravagance. "About time, Esther. We were starting to think you were just a freeloader," he added. I smiled sweetly and settled back into the uncomfortable wooden chair they always assigned me during family meetings. It was as if the good furniture was reserved only for real family members. I said I was happy to contribute. After all, family helps family, right? My sister-in-law, Lily, smirked from the couch, her newly manicured nails paid for by the so-called family fund. She tapped her phone screen and said, "See, Mom, I told you she'd come around. Even lazy people can learn." That word, lazy, had followed me for 2 years. Ever since I left my corporate marketing job to work remotely as a graphic designer. To Leo's family, working from home meant I was just playing around on the computer all day, contributing nothing while their precious son worked himself to the bone at his software engineering firm. I calmly reminded Vivian to follow the instructions in the envelope when she went to the bank the next day. She patted the envelope possessively and said, "Don't worry, dear. We know how to handle money. We've been managing the family fund for years." The family fund was their pride and joy. Every working member of the Thompson family was expected to contribute 25% of their salary to it. They claimed the money went towards family emergencies, investments, and helping struggling relatives. In reality, it funded Vivian's obsession with designer clothes, Henry's expensive wine collection, and Lily's endless stream of vacations. Leo shifted uncomfortably beside me. He'd been contributing since he was 20, never questioning where the money went. When we got married 4 years ago, his family immediately expected me to fall in line. For 2 years, I resisted. I made excuses, showed fake pay stubs indicating I earned far less than I did, and endured their mockery and contempt. But last month, something changed. I overheard Vivian on the phone with her friend. "Esther is useless. Sits at home all day pretending to work. Leo could have married that rich heiress. But no, he chose this lazy thing. At least when we get rid of her, we'll have a more compliant daughter-in-law." That was the moment I decided to take action. When Henry asked what made me finally see sense, I waved my hand dismissively and said I realized they were right. I'd been selfish keeping my little income to myself while Leo worked so hard. Lily snorted and said, "Mom said you barely make $600 a month with your computer stuff." I bit back a laugh. My computer work had earned me $9,000 last month alone. I had a client base that included several well-known tech startups and a couple of Fortune 500 companies, but they didn't need to know that yet. I told them I'd been trying to do better and that I got a raise recently, which was why I could finally contribute properly. Vivian's eyes lit up with greed. $3,600 a month, right? That's what Leo said you told him. I nodded. In reality, my monthly salary was $14,400. I'd been saving the difference in a separate account, waiting for this moment. Vivian clutched the envelope to her chest and started talking about how they could finally redecorate the living room and buy a new car. Henry added that he needed to upgrade his golf clubs, and Lily chimed in about wanting a new laptop. They spent the next hour planning how to spend my money, never once asking if Leo and I needed anything, and never acknowledging that we'd been living in a small apartment while saving for a house. They'd even tried to guilt Leo into borrowing from our savings for their so-called family needs. As we prepared to leave, Vivian pulled Leo aside and said, "Your wife finally understands her place in this family. Make sure she doesn't backslide." Leo nodded weakly. He was a sweet man, but he was always conflict avoidant and had never once stood up to his family. That night, Leo was full of praise. "Thank you for doing this, Esther. I know it's hard, but it means so much to them." I asked him if he even knew what they did with the money. He shrugged and said, "I guess they invest it. Mom handles all that. She's always been good with finances." I thought about the numerous unpaid bills and credit card debts I'd discovered through Lily's careless talk at a family gathering. Right. Good with finances, I muttered under my breath. The next morning, at 9:47 a.m. My phone started ringing. I let it go to voicemail 5 times before finally answering. Vivian's shriek came through the phone. She accused me of giving them an envelope full of Monopoly money. I feigned shock and asked if they were sure they went to the right bank. Confusion crept into her voice as she asked what I meant by the right bank. I patiently explained that the instructions in the envelope clearly stated to go to the address on the paper. That address was not just any address, it was the location of the real Thompson family fund, the one Leo's grandfather had established. I told her that they'd been stealing from it for 25 years. There was a long silence on the other end, and then she whispered, "How do you know about that?" I told her that while they mocked me for being lazy, I'd been photographing every important document in their house during my visits. Insurance documents, bank statements, and most importantly, the trust fund documents that showed Leo's grandfather had left a large sum of money for all his grandchildren's education and first homes. I told her I knew everything, including the fact that they owed Leo approximately $150,000. She insisted I couldn't prove anything, but I told her the address in the envelope was the office of a forensic accountant who specialized in trust fund fraud. He was expecting them, and there was probably a police officer with him waiting to discuss their long-term theft from their own children. The scream that followed was so loud that Leo came running from his home office. He looked at me and the phone in horror. I calmly told him that his mother had just discovered that I took family contributions very seriously, so seriously that I'd contributed evidence of 25 years of theft to the proper authorities. Vivian was sobbing now, and Henry's voice was booming in the background, demanding to know what was happening. Vivian begged me, "We're family. You can't do this to family." I agreed, saying that family doesn't steal from each other, doesn't mock someone for working from home while spending their stolen money, and doesn't plan to get rid of someone for not contributing to their criminal enterprise. Leo's face went pale. He asked what theft I was talking about. I handed him a folder I'd prepared, filled with every document, every bank statement, and every piece of evidence showing how his parents had stolen his future to fund their present. I also told Vivian that the $3,600 she was so eager to get was my monthly contribution to the real family fund, the one the forensic accountant was setting up to reimburse all the grandchildren they'd stolen from. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I turned to Leo, who was staring at the papers in shock. He whispered, "They stole my college fund. I took out loans and worked 2 jobs, and they had the money all along." I told him it wasn't just him. His sisters and cousins were also affected. His grandfather wanted to give all of them a head start in life, but his parents decided they deserved the money more. Leo sank onto the couch and asked why I didn't tell him earlier. I asked him if he would have believed me. His family had spent years convincing him that their financial struggles were real and that the family fund was necessary. They'd gaslit him since childhood. His phone started ringing. It was Lily. He declined the call and asked what would happen now. I explained that the forensic accountant and the police would handle the criminal side, and the lawyer I'd retained would handle the civil side. His parents would have to sell their house, liquidate their assets, and pay back what they stole. Whatever was left after legal fees would be divided among the grandchildren and us. I sat beside him, took his hand, and told him that we could use my actual salary, which was 4 times what he thought it was, to buy the house we'd been dreaming of. We could start the family we'd been putting off because we couldn't afford it. We could live our lives free from their manipulation. Over the following weeks, the family explosion was spectacular. Lily called Leo, screaming about betrayal until he blocked her. Henry sent threatening emails until the lawyer sent a cease and desist letter. Vivian tried showing up at our apartment, but we'd already moved. The investigation revealed even more than I'd imagined. Not only had they stolen from the trust fund, but they'd also taken out credit cards in their children's names, ruining their credit scores. They'd claimed Leo and Lily as dependents on their taxes well into their 20s, pocketing the refunds. The other cousins, once informed, were equally furious. Vivian's sister cut contact completely, and Henry's brother offered to testify against him. 6 months later, we were settled in our new house, paid for with my savings and Leo's recovered trust fund money. His parents were facing criminal charges and had declared bankruptcy. Lily, forced to get a real job for the first time, was living with a friend and slowly learning that the world didn't owe her a living. Leo was in therapy, working through years of financial abuse and manipulation. Our marriage was stronger for having weathered the storm together. One evening as we sat on our deck overlooking the garden, Leo asked, "Do you regret how it happened?" I knew he meant the elaborate monopoly money scheme instead of just calling the police directly. I told him no, they needed to feel what it was like to think they were getting what they wanted, only to have reality hit. They needed to understand that their greed had consequences. And the lazy computer work comments just made the reveal sweeter. Never underestimate someone who works from home, Leo. We have all day to plan our revenge while looking like we're doing nothing, I said with a smile. He raised his beer in a toast to lazy computer work and monopoly money and to family funds that actually help family. We clinked our bottles and watched the sunset, finally free from the toxic Thompson family fund. And as for my $3,600 monthly contribution, it now goes into our actual savings, building our future instead of funding someone else's greed. Sometimes, the best way to deal with a toxic family is to expose their toxicity to the light, even if it means using a little bit of monopoly money to make the point.